if you have a podcast in your heart and you have something that you want to say, just say it. Get in front of the camera and just do it, because you cannot mess up something that's in your heart.
Hi, and welcome to my podcast debut. It's a new podcast I've just been launching. Elaine, you're my first episode, and this podcast is about interviewing people who are in the process of launching their podcast. And the reason for it is many of you guys might think, oh, I want to launch a podcast and I don't know where to start with the tech. And I don't know if anyone's going to listen to me. And I have imposter syndrome and all these things. And I feel it's really relatable to hear the stories of people who actually do it. So thank you, Elaine, for being here today. My first question to you, very simple, is what are you grateful for today?
I am grateful to be alive. Yes, I am
Amazing.
grateful to be alive. It's definitely a blessing.
Amazing. And my acknowledgements to you. So you're in the process of launching your own podcast, and that's the first time you're being interviewed on a
Yeah,
podcast too. And so I could feel you're excited, but you're
yeah,
also very comfortable. You were like,
yeah.
yeah, let's do it. So I love it. You're ready. So I'm especially interested in podcasting in the lens of people's purpose on us and why they do what they do. So I'd love to ask you a pretty deep question
Okay.
already, which is what is your purpose on us? Like what really matters to you?
So I believe my purpose is serving. Right. And I think so many people miss that. So they miss that thing. Why am I here? What is my purpose on this earth? And some people can get too deep into it, but I believe, from my belief and just how I grew up, I believe my purpose is to serve people. So I'm not here for me. I'm here for you. I'm here for other people. Do you know what I mean? My purpose is to serve you. And so I think that goes deep into just like who you are as a person. And everybody's purpose look different. I believe that purpose is more driven from where your background, where you grew up. You know what I mean? I think that's where you find your purpose. And you also, you find your purpose in Christ. That's where I found my purpose at. You know what I mean? So that's where I found my purpose and what I was here to do. And I'm here simply just to serve people. Serve people, whatever that looks like, whatever that journey looks and wherever it navigates to. I'm here for it.
I love that. That's simple and beautiful. And I love to ask this question because in the episode today we'll dive into your podcast and potential maybe challenges that you have with it, also like what excites you with it. But as part of it, I like to relate it to people's bigger purpose in life. And I love that you're here to help others, and that's really beautiful.
Yes.
And so I'd love to know what's the well first, what inspired you to start a podcast?
So, what inspired me to start a podcast was like my childhood, right? So, like my childhood, I personally went through a lot of childhood trauma, and it as I got older, again, I didn't know what my purpose was, and I didn't know why, right? So I didn't know the why about behind trauma. People define trauma different. My trauma, the way it was defined, is more like go do something, speak, break the silence, break the generational curses, and things like that. So I think my childhood silence, because I was quiet from the trauma, and it was just time for me to speak out and just seeking God in that. And what would you like me to do? What do I do with this? Like, how do I navigate through the pain? Like, even asking the whys, but how can I give back even through the pain I had to experience? How do I give back to people? How do I pour into people from everything that was drained from me? How do I give back? And that's why serving people, and we'll get into it later, like you said, about like what my podcast is about, like just giving back, right? Because I feel everything was stolen from me, but now it's time to give back, even through that and navigating and still healing from it. I'm just excited just to just share my journey, because there's so many other people who are silent about so many things. So I'm excited to share my journey so I can empower other women or whoever it may be that healing is on the other side.
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah, coming from your own story and wanting to give back and maybe even give like maybe what you didn't get when you grew up
That's
or
right.
earlier,
Right.
right? Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, tell me, tell us more about your podcast idea.
Yes. So my podcast is it is called Hidden Agendas. And so when people hear hidden agendas, it automatically seems like it's a negative thing, right? Because when you think about agendas, you're just like, okay, somebody has an agenda to do this, and but if when you put hidden, it means that it's blinded, like you're blindsiding me on this agenda. And so I believe God gave me this just because there's so much going on in the world. And again, just to go back to my childhood and the things that I had to experience from the age of 5, right? So everybody I met in life had a hidden agenda, even as a 5-year-old child. Even like the people that, I loved, right? And that said that they loved me, everything became pain to me. And so once I got older and really just built a relationship with God, I realized that there's something still missing, and it was my silence. It was time to break the silence, but it was also time to speak and empower women and just let them know that you matter. Like you matter, like you're worthy, like you're enough. You're just enough. You know what I mean? You don't have to do anything to be enough. So fall in love with who you are. Fall in love with who you are so that when you see yourself in the mirror, you can say, I'm enough. I'm enough. And also not letting pain define you because a lot of us in trauma, and this will be like in hidden agendas, right? So trauma begins to identify us. It takes us to another place in life and it calls us by name. And that name becomes trauma. But so with hidden agendas, what we do is I navigate through my trauma and I navigate through my life how pain became purpose for me, right? And so I know like when people have trauma, they're like, oh, this happened to me, this happened, I did this, right? But where do we find a positive in that? How can we outgrow that? Like mentally, physically, spiritually, how do we outgrow those things? And so in hidden agendas, I take a lot of women on a journey of healing so that they know what healing looks like after the trauma. You don't have to stay there. And so that's the focus of hidden agendas. Like let's go through the trauma. Let's talk about it. Let's speak about it. Let's empower each other. Let's uplift each other. But when we are finished doing that, let's allow God to heal us so that we can become the people that He created us to be, not who the trauma created us to be. So that's hidden agendas wrapped up without giving you too much information.
Yeah, thank you so much. And you're so clear already on the podcast idea, and you're very comfortable speaking about it. So
Yeah.
congratulations on
Thank you so
all this. By the way, that's I don't know if it's something you've realized because you told me you already recorded a few episodes, but
much.
it's generally much easier to speak with someone than to
Yeah.
speak directly in front of a camera, don't you think?
Yeah. Yeah. That actually, you know what, Alex? That's how it was for me for my first 2 episodes. When I recorded the first 2 episodes, like I was literally stiff. Like I looked like a robot in front of the camera. And by the time the third one, I was loose. I was happy. I was enjoying. I began to enjoy what I do.
Oh, amazing, amazing. Well done. And I love what you shared also, like, you are enough and ultimately yeah, we forget about it, but we're all children of God and we all deserve the best. And sometimes
That's
it
right.
takes us a little bit to realize that just being, not doing anything, and that's a
Yeah.
beautiful message for sure. And I also love
Yeah.
how you share about the traumas. It's like there's a time in life where you can switch from okay, those traumas actually made me, and and you can
Right.
find purpose through it. So it's such a beautiful way to put it, and that excites me because my other podcast called The Light Leaders and is very focused about raising the consciousness of our planet. And even with this podcast, I screen people I have on the podcast to have people who have a positive impact in the world and have an
Mm.
empowering message. And I think that's very important. So thank you, Elaine, for
Yeah,
this.
you're
Yeah.
welcome. It's my pleasure. Like even though like this is the first well this is your other part, right, of your podcast. So this is the first. I think you said that in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
And I'm so honored. I'm so honored to actually be here with you, Alex. I really appreciate the opportunity. to just share more about hidden agendas. I think what people don't realize is that um, a lot of people want to do podcasts, and there's this fear of doing a podcast. For some reason, I have no idea. I had that same fear. So listen, listen, I had the same fear forever. Like, and I think the fear was more of fear of failure. And so, but when you really think about starting a podcast, if you have a podcast in your heart and you have something that you want to say, just say it. Get in front of the camera and just do it. Because you cannot mess up something that's in your heart. And if it's in your heart, it's meant for you to send the message. And so people are waiting. You just never know who's waiting on the message that you want to share with the world. And so think about it like not putting you first, right? Because we're here to serve again. So let there's people waiting out there for us to serve them. There's people going through things. There's people. So whatever the message is, just get in front of the camera and start recording. That's what I just started recording. And even though I was nervous and I was scared, and the reason I was scared, I want to share this, if this is okay, Alex. The reason I was scared is because what a lot of people make mistakes doing is you get on YouTube and you start looking at everybody else's podcast. And you try to become them. You try to do it exactly the way they do it. And then that just brings on a whole lot of fear because you're like, oh no, like they got this right. They got the right microphone. They got, you know what I mean? They got all of this stuff. I can't do it. And so then you limit yourself because now you're putting yourself in someone else's box, and so you have to break that boundary, break that box open and just do it. Somebody's waiting on you, just do it. It is so hard because I was trying to figure out what was that right microphone, like who's going to edit it, right? And so I even now, like if I'm just being transparent, even now I've recorded 6 episodes, but even now I'm still like I haven't even had anyone to edit the episode, right? But so when I thought about it and I really prayed about that, people need you to be authentic. So just be authentic. It's you. Show up as you. Don't try to pretend. Don't try to be like the other podcasters, you know, because you don't know where they started from. You only see the good part. You don't know where it started from. It could have started like just like me, right in my living room, right? You see, they have all of this stuff or whatever. And so don't limit yourself. Don't put yourself in a box. Just do it. And then as you do it gradually, for one, God will send people your way to help you and to pour into you. And for two, whatever, you get it out there. You get your story out there. It's so exciting. It's amazing. Like on my third one, I began to record on the third one. I was like super happy and excited because what you do is you fall in love with what you want. You fall in love with the podcast. You fall in love with recording because you realize it's not about you. And if we can take the us out of it, then we are in purpose. We are in line with purpose.
No, it's so beautiful. Yeah, I love that. So motivating and so true, so on point. It's actually very close to things I sometimes tell to people, beginner podcaster, but you're speaking already like a very advanced, let's say, an experienced podcaster on those tips that are really important. I love
Yeah,
that, and I will even add that we're all children of God, and we've been put here for a reason.
that's right.
Our voice, our specific message, our uniqueness is to be shared. And I love no comparison also with a bigger podcaster. There's something about that podcast thing where people think Joe Rogan, think big things. If you think about starting an Instagram account, it's like, yeah, sure, you can start with a few 100 followers and just share your life and it's okay. But podcast,
Yeah,
somehow it needs to be that huge thing. But especially
yeah,
in our day and age with new softwares, new tools, AI,
yeah.
it's never been easier to start a podcast. And I think more and more people will just be like regular folk with a podcast,
Yes,
and that'll be normal.
that's absolutely true, Alex. It's wild, but it has to be done. Like just do it. Like even and I just want to again send my gratitude to you, Alex, because what you're doing I think is really amazing. Because you might not even see it like this, but what you're doing is you're giving people who want to start a podcast, the ones that you are interviewing, you are giving us a comfort place, right? So we can get comfortable, even though that you're recording it. It's an important thing, right? Because this was big to me. Like you might not know it, Alex, but when we did the thing and you was like, okay, I want to interview upcoming podcasters. I was like, super excited, right? Because when you first start in your journey, I think you get in a thing of wanting to be seen and known. And it's so much because they throw so much towards you on the YouTube videos of how to start a podcast and things like that. But it's so simple. Just like you get, like Alex
Mm.
mentioned about Instagram, like you get in front of the camera on TikTok, you get in front of the camera on all of these other social medias. Just get in front of the camera. Just do it. It's not as hard as you guys think. It's really not. It's
Mm.
challenging. Yes. Will you be scared at first? Absolutely. You will have that fear, but the fear is more of failure than it is of succeeding, because once you start, you begin to love what you're doing.
Amazing. I love that. And yeah, actually doing these interviews I find is great because it's kind of like you can't be too much in your head when you record a solo episode. It's easy to procrastinate, to be a perfectionist. Well, I invite people on an interview like this, like, okay, it's happening. Let's do it. We're having the
Yes,
conversation, right?
that's
As
right.
we're doing right now, and there's no editing. Like when it's
That's right.
if
It's
there's a
authentic.
hesitation, it's
Yeah.
okay. It's the authenticity to the
Yeah.
point that so I'm a podcast coach. I help people start their podcast, and to the point that my clients now, instead of going through the program which has the first episode is a short solo,
Hmm.
usually that I recommend when they launch, I actually integrate this as part of my client's journey because having this as the first experience of being on a
Yeah.
podcast, being a guest, answering questions is actually much easier than doing your first solo episode. I don't know if you would agree with that as
Mm,
you've already recorded your solo, but being with someone and answering questions is just more natural as human beings.
yeah.
And so that's actually a great first step even before you launch your podcast. I found, so I was like, okay, I'm going to offer that to people.
Yeah. That's I didn't even look at it like that. But now I see, yeah, absolutely. And it's more comfortable, and then it gets you into like continue to create, continue to record. It gets you there. I definitely, because I actually feel like a natural. So like, I don't know if y'all know this, but so I'm very honored. I'm so
Amazing.
honored.
Yeah, and get people familiar also with how it looks like because you'll probably see. I mean, I could post this episode in an hour with clips from
Yeah.
social media. Now with AI, it's pretty smooth, and then people already have an experience of using these tools. And by the way, a little parenthesis for the viewer: if you're watching this, you probably have in your mind that you want to start a podcast. If that's the case, two things you can do: either you can be on this podcast like Elaine right now, just
Yes.
check in the description. I'll put a link there. And I'd love to have you on the podcast too to talk about your podcast idea and your podcast debut. If you feel a little shy to do that yet, you can also book a free consultation with me in the
Mm,
link below and we can have a chat. But yeah, it is an exciting time to start a
yeah,
podcast. And yeah, I love having had you,
it
Elaine. Is
is.
there a few more things you... Oh, actually, I have another question.
Sure.
Do you want to do only solos or also with guests? What's the format of your podcast?
So I want to do a mix. So I want to do a mix of every thing. So what I've recorded so far is just like videos of me or whatever, just introducing each episode. Um, I think when I got, because I literally have a list of episodes already prepared. It's just about recording them. So, but when I get in between them, I have like a couple people that I will be interviewing, that aligns with hidden agendas, or that has been through what hidden agenda is about. And so I do have like some episodes where I will be interviewing other people. So yes, I'm super excited about that. And I wanted to do that, Alex, I wanted to do just audio, but and like this is like no shade literally on people who do audio. It's just that I'm so authentic. I want people to see me when I'm talking to them. I want them to see me. I want them to, see my face. You see what I'm saying? I want them to see my face so that you know that you're important, right? Like you're important to me. So I want you to see me as I speak or as I interview you and things like that. And it was just
Mhm.
that's this is what God gave me. I'm only moving by God. I'm only moving by God. It has nothing to do with me. I know it looks like but it's the spirit of God moving through me. And I think that's where
Mhm.
my excitement comes from, because I know who put this in me, And so I know the success because he's successful, right? So I know the success that is coming behind it, and I know it's going to help people. And that's the biggest things that I'm focused on.
Oh, amazing. That's beautiful. And I love what you shared. You do video, you want people to see you. And in our day and age, I think it moves the needle for sure. I actually have a video on this channel, which is about video versus audio. And there's also other reasons that are important. I think posting on YouTube is really important because people search a lot on YouTube. And also you can create clips then. So even if you give me
Mm.
your Instagram, I'll add you as a collaborator. We'll do a clip from that episode, and it's done with AI. It's very simple, and it really helps the promotion to be on video. So that was a good call.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna get you that. I'll definitely get you that Instagram. But it's amazing. I think so. I just want to say this, like, to who's ever watching, if you are thinking about starting a podcast, if you have had any thoughts about it, just do it. But listen, if you're scared, please, please, please. I think Alex have the link down or whatever. Hit the link and just do it. It's going to be amazing. It's an amazing opportunity for you, and actually, it gets your feet wet, right? And it gets you like, because actually, just doing this now, like I have been prolonging on doing episode 7. When I get off, I'm turning right back around and do episode 7. So it gets you in the door and it gets you comfortable and it gets you going, and it's so much motivation. And you don't even feel nervous. Like I don't even feel nervous, like or anything. I'm just like, oh, this is good. And so it introduces you to the podcast world.
Amazing, thank
So
you.
get with Alex.
Yeah,
Oh, he ain't
yeah,
paying me to
thank
say
you,
that either.
thank you.
Get with Alex. I'm telling you, you want to do that.
Yes,
It's a real
I
opportunity.
appreciate that. And actually, let's take the last few minutes of our episode today to, as I'm a podcast coach, I would love to offer also any help on. Do you have any challenges that you feel are coming ahead that you feel you need help with or that you want to ask me about?
So sure. So first of all, like again, I said at the beginning about like the microphones and things like that, right? And so um I think my challenge now is more like, should I use a microphone or should I not use a microphone? So that's like a place where I was kind of stuck at, just because certain qualities of certain microphones. And so what do you think when it comes down to using like microphones or things like that? What do you think? Do you think that would like kind of harm the podcast in any way or anything?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. And things around equipment are very common. And I will add that often people procrastinate too much around the equipment. In our day and
Mhm.
age, there's a lot of really, like, for example, I'm recording right now. It's just my iPhone 15. Hello, that's my iPhone 15. And with I'll show with a little ring light here and this to clip it on. So there's no mic. It's
Wow.
just my iPhone 15.
Okay.
And it's so easy. I really recommend simple. So iPhone 15, people can judge, right? And this is the video, this is the audio, how it sounds like. Nowadays, on top of it, there are softwares are getting better and better with AI. So even sometimes so for example, with Riverside, actually that's one feature they need to get better at. It's called Magic Audio, but
Mm,
they told me they're working on it, and it's really upgrading the audio to a studio quality. It's not there yet, but
yeah.
it's gonna be soon. Other programs have better ones on this one. So if you have like for example, you're recording on your iPad without a mic right now.
Yes.
I think it sounds really good. I don't think like you definitely need your audio not to sound bad because people don't want to listen to something that doesn't sound good. But
Yeah.
the difference between me now on my iPhone and you on your iPad and a $500 mic is like it's not big. It's really not big. So of course, if you're there, you're the CEO and you have millions of views on each episode, it makes sense to put a few $1,000s for the little things. But when people
Yes.
start, it's really not that important. Just get enough that that it's pleasant to listen to. So in your case, you don't need like that's really good. That's really good.
Yeah. So
Um,
what about?
so you could
Go ahead.
then when you are in person, I recommend these, and you could use them too. And you can test with them, but these are like mini clip mics. So when you have two people, again keeping it simple. When I have in-person interviews,
Yes.
I do with these and my iPhone as just a video. And when I do online interviews, I just use Riverside like we're doing right now, and it's really good. I don't feel I need anything else. Also,
Yeah.
always keeping in mind that the more device you have, the more complexity it creates. Like if you start plugging in a microphone, you might forget something. It's more in your head. It's just like there's more possibilities of something not working.
Makes sense. That makes sense. So you spoke about clips and doing clips. So what do you think? And this is just something just about like each episode. What do you think is the pros and cons of each episode, like having like reels or a clip before that episode actually comes out?
Mm. Uh, yeah. I actually prefer to post reels once I post them because I want to give the opportunity. Like I when I post an episode, I post a reel like this. If people
Okay.
it's just if people see a reel and they're like, I want to watch the episode, I want them to be able to watch the episode. And in a
Yes.
fast-paced world, I understand the logic, like to create anticipation and teaser, but
Yes.
pe- people's attention go in many directions. So I feel once they're
Mm,
like, I want to listen to it, I want them to be able to listen to it. Because if they have a teaser, they'll be like, oh yeah, it's out tomorrow. I want to listen to it tomorrow when it goes out. And then they forget.
yeah. Makes sense.
So I keep it
I
simple.
think.
When you post a reel also. That works really well when you have a guest also, especially if they have a good audience, because then you can leverage their audience. If you use Instagram, you can do a collab, but I think for the social media, you can do something similar too.
Mm, okay. So I think another question, and probably a lot of people, probably want to know the answer to this question. So with the episodes, when doing a podcast, and you're doing an episode, so I noticed that you don't really do editing and stuff like that. You're just like, or do you do a little editing? Because I think the big thing, my big challenge is that like, and why I have not released the episode is because I feel like there was no editing. There, it hasn't been edited. I feel like, especially the first two episodes when I was speaking, I feel like I was saying like a lot or right, right. Do you see what I'm saying? Like those little words, and so I didn't want to release anything like that. So I think that's actually, you know what I mean, is what's making me procrastinate on actually starting to release my episodes, is that it's not edited,
Mm. Oh,
and
thank
so
you.
it's kind of putting me behind.
That's a
What are your
great.
thoughts on
That's
that?
a great question. Look, there is a sweet spot between wanting to put things out there and wanting to make them better. We don't want to be a perfectionist, but we also want to do things that we're proud of.
Yeah.
In the context of editing, I would say for conversations with guests in general, it doesn't need much editing because it's much easier. Unless there is
Okay.
really something like a big interruption in the meeting, but otherwise, usually I don't have editing. When you do a solo episode, it is usually, it depends. Some people are so at ease and they'll do a long format, but I would generally recommend to go a little shorter, maybe 15, 20 minutes, and not go over that, especially in the beginning, and to have it a little bit more prepared. Yes. And so I don't recommend scripting, but I recommend bullet points, and I recommend to do it in a way that you can allow yourself to have a really long pause and maybe read your next bullet point, take a few breaths, and start again.
Okay.
And so I do think for solo episodes you need a little bit more editing, and the way to do that is to already think about it when you record. So that's actually an important point. As I mean, it's great that you just start. I never want people to
Yeah.
postpone because of that. But as you do it, it's more efficient when you reverse engineer the process. So when you think, what's the outcome I want? How does it look edited? How am I gonna record it to get that result?
Yeah.
Rather than, okay, I'm gonna record and now what do I do with it? So there's a way to
Yeah.
record your solo episode where you know it's gonna be really easy to edit.
Mm-hmm. Mm. So I guess like and I heard you say like were you referring to the time length of episodes when you start when you said between 15 and 20 minutes? Okay. So I know a lot of people want to ask this question. Listen, because when you do like look at different people who are showing you how to do a podcast or have some assistance, like for instance, like in a couple groups, podcast in a group, I mean podcast groups on Facebook or whatever. And so you have different views of how different people doing it, right? And so you're always going to have that. Anything that you do in life, somebody's always going to do it different, but we're, just looking for the same results to come out of it. So when it comes down to episodes being that short, from what I got when I first started, was your episodes need to be over 30 minutes long. And so I believe with that, because what I also got with the episodes starting is that you should have two views, right? So you're not just staring at one camera. You should have two views. And that's how I started off. Like I will have my camera over here and I have my iPad or phone right here. But I found that a little bit hard to merge, if that makes sense. I found it a little bit challenging. It was more difficult to merge being recorded two different ways into one episode.
Mhm.
It just made it really, really difficult. So, like, I put the camera away. You know what I mean? But that's a big thing. Like, when people want to start a podcast, you see all these different ways you can do anything. How do you choose which one works best?
I love that. And I will start with, best way is your way. So obviously there are some best practices, but any rule can be broken if you really feel that it's your authentic way to do it.
Yeah,
Like one of the maybe the biggest podcasts would be Joe Rogan, and he's going 3 hours having conversations with people. Right. So there's
yeah,
very different ways to be successful with podcasting. Also, if you choose just audio, or also like if you do it more like a YouTube channel, they can have differences. So ultimately, and that's what I do also, that's the challenge when I coach people and have an online program, is that I put my learnings, but I always say, if you have a strong feeling to do it differently, do it differently. If you don't really know, probably go with what I share because I have that experience. But if you have a strong feeling like, you know what, this doesn't resonate with me, I'm going to do it differently on this,
mm,
absolutely do it because there's many, many different ways to do it. And the best way is yours. Now, to answer on the two cameras, I'm I'm going to say so for me, I'm looking at what's the 20% of focus and effort that gives 80% of the result. And two cameras
mm,
is not part of that. And I could give you some really successful YouTube channel. It's just a person talking. And and the thing is, if it was
yeah,
so easy, I'd be like, sure, two cameras. But adding two cameras is adding a big layer of complexity in the editing compared to having
yeah,
one camera. That's like a
it
lot
is.
of extra work.
Yeah,
So, for example, going from two cameras to three cameras is not so much more work because you're going to need to do the editing and switching angles anyway. But going from one camera
that's
to
right.
camera that's really the moment, especially when you're a beginner podcaster, when you end
Yeah.
up overthinking it, being a lot in the tech,
Mm-hmm.
which is maybe probably not your genius and why you wanted to do a podcast. You wanted to express yourself, have a lot of potential problems, and also cut the flow, cut the authenticity. Like let's say you have a download, you want to share something, and all of a sudden you need to spend half an hour figuring out how everything works and how the battery's charged and all this. And then once it's recorded, you never like you have other things to do with your life. when
Yeah.
I train people, I train them to post every week for 4 hours with 4 hours a week, because yeah, then if you know you have 4 hours of editing in front of you for each episode, like you're just gonna give up. Like many people, like you shared, they don't start their podcast, and that's sad. But a lot of people, I think it's about 90% of podcasts, they don't reach episode 10 because you have all these files, and the editing is
Mhm.
not fun, and you've lost that. So
Yeah.
um, that person maybe has a lot of joy editing. So it depends also. If
Yeah.
someone comes to me and they're like, I love editing and I'm going to use a pro software and stuff, amazing. But where I specialize in is people who they want to share their message and they want to get the editing done as easily as possible and not overthink it and spend too much time on it. And in that case, I would say the two cameras was, in my opinion, very bad advice.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I noticed. I got rid of the two
Yeah.
cameras
You can do
over
it
there.
like once.
So
So there are a lot of examples of YouTubers, for example, they started one camera and then they reach like 50,000 subscribers and they make a lot of money. And then they're like, okay, I'm going to hire an editor and two cameras. And then it makes sense.
yeah. So I heard you say, Alex, that as you were speaking, I heard you say that you have something that you do online,
Hmm.
like a class that you will do online. I actually didn't know that. Can you fill me in on that? Will you speak a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, thank you so much. I have an online program on a platform called School that I've developed after working one-on-one with some people to help them start their podcast. And basically, it's called Your First 5 Episodes in 6 weeks. And I take people on a 6 week journey where on the first week, we slow down a little bit and prepare the positioning, the branding. Week two, we start sending the invites to people. We'll start setting up the YouTube channel, the Spotify. Week three, we start recording episode 1 and 2 for launch on week four with the 2 episodes, one which is an intro, a second one, which is an example of what you'll do long term with the podcast. And then 5 and 6 is about building the momentum, and during those 6 weeks, it takes about 8 to 10 hours a week to build your podcast and your first 5 episodes. And then you have a recipe to keep going if you want to post weekly for 4 hours a week. And so it's really aimed at people who want to start their podcast. They want it to be high quality. They want it to leverage the guests, to promote it. Like it's definitely quality. So if people are just like, I don't know, I just need to put something out there, take your phone and post it. And I don't feel you need a program for that. But for people who want that next level quality, but using AI, the right tools, not overthinking it, the checklist, that's why I created
Mhm.
it. And I've done the first group just early January. And so just with 3 people to test it. And the 3 of them are meant
Yeah,
to post their podcast this week. The first one did yesterday. So yeah, it's exciting.
that's amazing. So one last question for you, Alex. So if I wanted to get in that class in the next class, how do I get in that class and when does it start?
Yes, amazing. Let's have a chat right after because yeah, that's how I do anyway. Because I'm like I make sure. So it's called the Conscious Podcast Lab, and I just have a few criteria that I have that you're totally within them, which is like being a
Okay,
conscious
okay.
leader, and especially
Yeah.
as I'm starting, I like to make sure that the people that join that are like we're gonna do something really, really good collaboration.
Got.
But let's take it
Mhm.
like now we're still recording. So thank you so much everyone for watching this first episode. We went almost 40 minutes, but that's also
Yeah.
the joy of the podcast and the conversation.
Yeah.
And as you see,
Yeah.
Elaine and the people who watch, I want this to be really authentic. So at some point, it's like we're having a
Yeah.
conversation, and you can learn from both of us for sure. Like Elaine, some of your downloads in that episode were so amazing, and also just hear a real conversation about two podcasters, Elaine, who's starting her
Yeah.
podcast now, and me, who's starting this new podcast actually now, and more on the early side of my podcast coaching career, but also have my experience with the Light Leaders. So if you go on YouTube and type the Light Leaders
Mm.
in one word, that's my other podcast that I have more experience. Thank you so much. Much love to everyone. Thank you for viewing this
Thank
far. Of course, if
you.
you want to support,
You
like
got.
subscribe, and if you have any questions, please share in the comments. So I'm going to read and answer to all the comments. So make sure you post there. Much love, Elaine. Much love, everyone.
See you guys. Thank you for watching.